Hello everyone, it's Nina and welcome back to my channel. Today we are going to be doing a review of all of the books that I read in 2021. So this isn't 100% the books that I read in 2021. I actually started my reading journey in November of 2020, so I basically am tracking the 12-month progress that I had from November of that year to November of this year. In total, I read 30 books, which was over my goal of 25. And technically, it would be slightly more if you counted each volume of manga, because for me, manga is like popping chips. I just read them one right after another, and they just aren't as much of a time sink as a regular prose book would be. I think next year I'm going to keep my manga and graphic novel list separate from my regular prose book list, because it just pushes up my page count and my book count a lot. So for this video, I'm going to start off by reading all of the books that I read and giving you my star ratings for them. And then we're going to talk about the 5-star reads that I had, as well as my favorite book, my least favorite book, and the book that I would recommend to people. So without further ado, let's get right on into it. We have Dune by Frank Herbert, Bunny by Mona Awad, Dune Messiah by Frank Herbert, Gothic: A Reader, edited by Simon Bacon, Sabriel by Garth Nix, Carmilla by Joseph Sheridan Le Fanu, 20th Century Gothic, edited by Misha Wessler and Xavier Aldana Reyes, The Monk by Matthew Lewis, Reign of the Fallen by Sarah Glenn Marsh, Children of Dune by Frank Herbert, Lyriel by Garth Nix, Titan's Bride by Itzkis, B.J. Alex by Mingwa, Lilith's Brood by Octavia Butler, The Turn of the Screw by Henry James, Lolita by Vladimir Nabokov, the original Yu-Gi-Oh! Manga, volumes 1 through 6 by Kazuki Takahashi, How to Give Up Plastic by William McCollum, Catherine House by Elizabeth Thomas, The Gentleman's Guide to Vice and Virtue by Mackenzie Lee, Monsters, She Wrote, edited by Lisa Kroger and Melanie R. Anderson, Plain by Heroines by Emily Danforth, We Have Always Lived in the Castle by Shirley Jackson, Heart of Darkness by Joseph Conrad, The Lady's Guide to Petticoats and Piracy by Mackenzie Lee, Red, White, and Royal Blue by Casey McQuiston, Mainly Advertised Volume 1 by Mito, Our Dreams at Dusk by Yuki Kamatani, Go For It Nakamura-kun by Stundai, and She's Too Pretty to Burn by Wendy Hurd. Okay, so with that flyby view out of the way, we can talk about my 5-star reads from this year. My first 5-star read, which was kind of the reason why I decided to get back into reading and commit to reading more books this year, was Dune by Frank Herbert. I decided I wanted to read this book because I knew the movie was coming out and I was really enticed by the first trailer for it, and I just thought it would be a good opportunity to read the book before the movie came out. And I really actually do prefer the book to the movie adaptation. I think the thing I like most about Dune is I just really enjoy all of the characters. I also think it's just a really interesting version of the Chosen One story. I do think Frank Herbert has an interesting writing style that can take a while to get used to, but I think he has a really great grasp on world building, and you just have to really allow yourself to buy into all of that. I think the thing I like most about the book is because there is so much background in world building and a lot of exposition that's given, and the movie just doesn't really have that. But I do think the movie is really good, and I actually think I would love to reread the book again before the second half of it comes out. The second 5-star read I had was a reread for me, and that's Sabriel by Garth Nix. I read this book back probably in middle school, which is interesting because I'm pretty sure this is either a new adult or an adult fantasy book. The things I like about this, and really is my favorite thing about all Garth Nix books, is that he just does an amazing command of mood and atmosphere. I think he has a really good balance of detail-oriented world building that will help get you immersed, and then he will cut to a really fast-paced and dramatic scene. And I just really like the trio of the main characters. Spoiler alert here, my favorite character is Mogget. I think he's just such a fun character, and I really like the juxtaposition of a character who's both a snuggly, cute animal and also this deadly, immortal being. The next 5-star I have on this list is a NSFW one, and that is B.J. Alex. This is a really steamy, not-for-children manga. I think I talked about this all in my initial reading wrap-up for this, but I really like the side relationship of Chanwoo and Myeongdae. I also said this in my initial review, but basically anytime Chanwoo was thinking anything or giving life advice to Donghyun, I was thinking the exact same thing, and I just really like it when you and the same character are on the same page. And spoiler alert for here, another thing that I really liked about this was Ji-won's character development. I really like they actually had to work to get Donghyun back after they broke up. And also, once they were a couple, it actually felt like a very natural progression for their relationship. Switching over to manga, I'm going to talk about my 5-star read of the original 6 volumes of Yu-Gi-Oh! I said this a lot in my initial review, but I just feel like Takahashi is such a genius and really planned out all of the arcs of Duel Monsters before he went into things, because there's just a lot of foreshadowing in the lore of the Shadow Games and the way they eventually pan out in Millennium World. I also said this in my initial review, but I really liked the second duel with Kaiba. I think it's done with a lot more nuance than how it is portrayed in the anime. I really like that how when Yugi summons Exodia, Takahashi uses symbolism and kind of shows the pieces of Exodia coming together to represent the bonds that Yugi has with his friends. It's definitely not framed like that in the anime version, and I just think that this version is a little bit more interesting. Okay, the next 5-star read is one that kind of came out of nowhere. and I can't really put into words how much I like this book, but it's Gentleman's Guide to Vice and Virtue. This is probably my favorite book I've ever read for pleasure, which is kind of saying a lot. I just really love everything about it. I think the narration is a big part of that. I think Monty is just so much fun to read, and he does really grow and change throughout the story. I feel like other people have said this, but your enjoyment of the book definitely comes from how much you buy into the idea of Monty being charming, and I definitely do buy into that idea. I really love him, and I do think that he grows a lot and shows a lot of vulnerability and has to work through a lot of the trauma he's kept buried. And in the end, he's better for it, but I think he still has some of the parts of him that made his personality shine from the beginning. Another thing that took me by surprise is that I really loved Monty's relationship with his sister Felicity. I think they have a lot of really good bonding moments over the story that I really felt for them in. And obviously I love his relationship with Percy, and Percy is just so cute and like the perfect foil for Monty. Also, this was the very first audiobook that I read, and I really enjoyed it. I definitely highly recommend that version. Okay, the last 5-star read that I had was Red, White, and Royal Blue. And what I liked about this was that it was a very big feel-good story, and it was just really heartwarming that even with all the intense part, there was like a victory in the end where justice was served. I also really liked that all the millennial characters, for the most part, talked and acted like actual people. I think there maybe were a couple zingy one-liners too many, but I really felt that, especially in the way that they texted, it reflected how real millennials actually text. And once again, I felt like I came for the romance, but I really stayed for the family dynamic, because the relationship of Alex and his dad, like those scenes were probably some of my favorites, and I was really emotionally mushy and tender during them. The whole part when they're at his dad's lake house, I was just like, oh my god, this is just so vivid and like beautiful, and I wish I was there. Also did want to point out the ending was like, I know this is like written as a fictional alternate version of the 2021 election, but oh boy, it was hitting a little too close to home with how emotionally draining that experience was. But it also was kind of like a sigh of relief of like, yes, there is that still internal fire of hope that people can be good deep down and make the right choice. Although the Claremont-Diaz second term is probably going better than the Biden term is, but hey, fiction is escapism, isn't it? Okay, so those were all of my 5-star reads. If it wasn't apparent from what I just said, Gentleman's Guide was definitely my favorite book of this year. I did read the sequel, and I'm waiting for the right time to read the third book. My least favorite was Turn of the Screw by Henry James. This book was kind of the epitome of what I think people think of when they think of classics, in that it was both the language being hard to read, and it was really boring and nothing happened. For books I would recommend, I obviously do think that Dune is really good, and I definitely would prefer it over the movie. I definitely think if you are interested in the movie, having the book as background is somewhat essential reading. Another book that is kind of strange to recommend, but I really enjoyed The Monk by Matthew Lewis. I think if you're interested in getting into Gothic fiction, this is one of the rare cases of male Gothic literature, and it's just really insane. There definitely are a lot of triggers though, so before you go in, definitely look that up, just so you know how intense it's going to be. Now I want to talk a little bit about what I feel like I've learned about myself in the last year of reading. Going into this, I wasn't really sure what genres I was going to like anymore, because this was the first time I had read in quite a while. Going from reading 1 book a year maybe to 30 books is a very big jump. I kind of picked Gothic novels at random because I was interested in reading classics, but I wanted a more narrowed down, I guess, like niche genre. And it just was a fun genre to learn more about and do research on. I read it because I was thinking about movies that I really liked, and I really liked the movie Crimson Peak, and that has a lot of classic Gothic tropes in it. So I decided to do more research into the genre, and while I love the academic essays that I read on them, I just really don't feel like I care about female Gothic that much. I also want to say that female Gothic and male Gothic aren't necessarily gender tied, it's more about how the story is framed. Female Gothic is books like Castle of Otranto and Mysteries of Udolpho, where a young woman goes to a castle and gets creeped on by a dude while trying to unveil a mystery. Whereas male Gothic is more about hubris and the actions people take internally that reveal their true natures, so stuff like Dorian Gray, the monk, Frankenstein. In the female Gothic, it's more about the character being on the receiving end of the action, whereas male Gothic, it's more about the main character being the one that moves the plot forward and is often the aggressor or the villain. And I just feel like I prefer the latter a lot more. Also, a lot of Gothic books are real downers, and overall, I just want to read more happy books. I really do like escapism in my reading. I think that's the main reason why I'm interested in reading. From reading both The Gentleman's Guide and Lady's Guide, I realized that I really do like historical fiction, especially set during like a very romantic era like the 1700s. And I also realized I like pirate books, which makes sense because Pirates of the Caribbean is like one of my favorite movies. Just a little bit of grounded history and a little bit of a magical realism element for fun. I also realized that I really like character-driven books, and I realized that I like either a funny, happy main character or like a very no-nonsense, sensible type of main character. I guess I like the first character because they are fun to read, and the second because I feel like I can relate to them and understand their thought process a lot more. And I find it really hard to connect to a main character if they're making choices like you just can't really relate to or understand the thought process of. But anyway, yeah, that was my 2021 in reading. I'll probably make another video about my 2022 reading plans coming up in the future. But thank you guys all so much for watching. Please consider subscribing if you aren't already. I hope you all have a wonderful day, and I will see you all in the next video. Bye!